talk about lighter things,
Yes.
maybe not lighter things, because you've caused a bit of a diplomatic incident. But anyway, Disneyland Paris and the Gardaí. What's the story?
Listen, I'm going to talk about how I got the story because
Okay.
people might find it interesting about how these stories come around because they just see it in the paper, right, or up on the Mirror website. And they don't really see there's always a backstory to a story. So a couple of weeks ago, the guards did a Darkness into Light March parade at Templemore Garda College in Tipperary. And I was looking at it and I did a publicity shot. There were maybe 200 guards and it's in the middle of the night and they were all wearing their guard uniforms. But just over in the corner, I noticed 4 gendarmerie. And I was going, what is the story there? So I wanted to do a story. Essentially, there were 4 members of the Gendarmerie Nationale from France who were over on an exchange. So I wanted to try and interview them, but by the time the photos were out, they were gone. So
Right.
I was speaking to the Garda press office, and they were saying, "Look, we can do something about this, but it's a French thing, so you'll have to talk to the French embassy." I said, "No problem." So I contacted the French embassy, and they said, "Yeah, we can do that. We can talk about this, and the ambassador would like to talk to you about it." So I said, happy days. It's not every day you get invited to talk to an ambassador. So I went in, I think it was it Wednesday? I went in on Wednesday. And now it was made clear to me that there were plenty of questions I wanted to ask because I've got a chance to interview ambassadors. I wanted to ask, say, for example, about the Sophie Toscan-de-Plantier case. I wanted to ask about Ireland's undersea cables because France has an interest in that, because they go through Irish EEZ and stuff. No, we just want to talk about the policing and cooperation. So I thought, frig, here we go. This is going to be a 5-minute interview. It's going to be embarrassed and I'm going to be scundered, as you say up north. And I'm going to sit there and go, what are we going to talk about? But he was a lovely man. We were chatting away and we started getting into it. And he just mentioned guards going to France. And I remember last year I did a story about I think it was 2 Gardaí went over to Mont Saint-Michel in Normandy on a wee pilot scheme to look after Irish tourists, right? But he volunteered and he said, yes, and that's being extended and they're coming back next year and they're going to do Giverny, which is near Paris, a place in the Loire Valley. And then he said, Disneyland. And I went, you're going to Disneyland? Yes. And he told us the whole thing. An ambassador on the record saying they're going to Disneyland. So I came out, and you'll understand this, but I came out going, this is a fucking brilliant story. But I thought it was a funny story. Right?
Yeah.
I thought it was a quirky story, right? So it was in the paper and it was up online, and it just exploded.
Did you see the backlash coming, or was it only in hindsight you went, oh?
As the French say, absolument pas. I did not have a Scooby. My first indication was I was up on Twitter, and you never look at the replies, so I had it up on Twitter, and somebody said, "Why are they going to France when they can't even patrol O'Connell Street?" And I went, "Okay, right." And then 10 minutes later, a buddy of mine rang me to say, listen, Catherine Murphy, coincidentally, has just raised this in the Public Accounts Committee. I went, oh shit, this shit's getting real. And then I looked on Twitter and there was a huge backlash. And then it was mentioned in the Dáil. So I didn't see, I every day is a school day, I did not see this being I thought it would be just a funny story and everybody would go, oh, look at that and move on to something else. But it was, so there was significant consternation, and there was, I have to say, consternation amongst Gardaí who are worried about the low numbers of the guards, and several of them were going, we can't even get people to respond to something major, and the depot as the headquarters are sending people to France. What's going on? So guards were angry about this.
Yeah.
Right? So there was a sequel with you today in relation to this.
Like, isn't it mad how, I suppose, depending upon the public reaction, that certain people's position can magically change? Because obviously, like, there must be something to it, given the French ambassadors outright said it to you on the record. I mean, there must have been some plan in place. But I'll amuse you here. I'm not going to name the person because obviously that wouldn't be fair. But I think the view from Garda management, Garda headquarters now is backtracking a little bit and sort of saying that there is no application for approval for Gardaí to travel in general. I won't say what the rest of the message says, but it's basically putting it back onto the French ambassador and saying you'll need to ask him.
Well, yes. So I've been doing a little bit of digging about this, right? And I'm sorry, you do not fuck around with the ambassador of a very powerful country like France. You don't. So nobody's going to say the ambassador was lying. I've been carrying out my own investigations, and I did because I know you Simon Harris. We'll talk about Simon Harris said something today about it. What did he say? And then I can contextualize.
Well, sorry. Yeah, we were at, which we'll talk about in a minute. We were at the ceremony for Walter Scott medals were being handed out to very brave members of Garda Síochána, and Simon Harris was there, obviously as the Minister for Justice, and he did a doorstep afterwards, and he was asked about your report and about guards going to Disneyland. I'm paraphrasing a bit here, but I can recall him saying, let's take a step back from this, which straight away is okay, right? And he basically downplayed it and said that that no application has been made to the government about sending guards to Disneyland. He kind of said that in general he isn't necessarily against a small cohort of Gardaí going across and patrolling in other countries such as France, but in terms of Disneyland, he basically downplayed it and stated that he wouldn't be for it. Like, it didn't say outright that he wouldn't be for it, but suggested that's not going to happen. And also was making that point that no formal application has been made. And now the view from Garda headquarters is the same. No application's been made. So, maybe it was floated, but nothing has officially been.
Well,
it's backtracking. It's backtracking because of the fucking.
Yeah.
Because
so I've scuppered a nice wee trip for. By the way, what's the difference between going to Disneyland and Mont Saint Michel? They're both a haven for Irish tourists. What is the difference? Just because it says Disneyland, I don't understand what their thing there is.
They just can't fathom the image of having a Garda maybe photographed next to Mickey Mouse when they should be maybe here on the streets, and the image that it portrays, I guess.
Right. So here's what I say. Here's what I think. And I'd be pretty happy about this. The ambassador said it on the record, and he said it unbidden. So if the ambassador was talking about it, I think he has significant credibility. Now, what I will say, I got that on a Wednesday. I did contact got the Garda and the Department of Justice to tell them I was doing the story, and to put questions to various people. So it will not have come as a shock to senior Gardaí or senior members of the Department of Justice when that story appeared. It's our due diligence. We have to. The ambassador has said this, so I didn't do a flyer and not tell them. So people were aware. So what I would believe,
you've got somebody on the record saying it's not like.
So here's what happened. Here's what I think happened. The minister's right, and we're into the world of people being Jesuitical, and you and I know that people are being very good at being Jesuitical in the field in which you and I work. It's probably correct that they haven't applied for it yet, but that's just a formality. But there were plans underway to do that when I did my story, and I think I have fucked it up for the.
You think they've dropped it? Yeah,
I think so, and I feel really bad about that. Maybe it wasn't me. Maybe it was the reaction. Right, I just did my job. It was only what the ambassador told me. But I think I've put a, what's the word? I'm trying to think of a French pun. I think I've messed up on that for the 4 week Gardaí who were looking for a month in Paris.
Somebody behind the scenes there now is after, fuck's sake, Robert, we're not sending the fucking lads to Disneyland, for God's sake.
I think that's exactly what's going to happen. And I'm very sorry. All the lads in the depot were all the lads who were getting their applications in. Je suis vachement désolé.
Very good. Well, it's a good story.
It's a great story.
It's always great when you get that kind of reaction. I just hate when they try to take a shit on it and kind of almost imply that it's that's not true. Like it's more just like it was definitely floated, but we don't like the reaction, so it's not happening now. And
what saved me, I think, was that we had a man who's called His Excellency saying it on the record. So if they're crapping on the story, they're crapping on His Excellency. They're not crapping on poor wee Mick O'Toole, who just did his job and got it out of him. So if those people have problems, talk to Mr. Guérend. He lives across the road from Marion Street, so he's not that far away.
I love this. I love the reaction of everybody to it. That's the sign of a good story, isn't it?
I wanted to put out that meme that escalated quickly. The one.
Oh yeah.
I was going to tweet that out, so instead I put out somebody sent me a picture of Templemore Garda College, and they had superimposed the Disneyland sign on the gate. So I put that out instead. So, geez, it's got some reaction, but I have to say,